So in this lab dissection, we want to go ahead and open up most of the cat's thorax. This one was already dissected. We're going to see a few other different examples. But this one, they went ahead and we opened up the thoracic cavity. We did a midline incision throughout from the bottom of the pelvis all the way up to the top of the neck. They've removed the ribs, in this case. So they have removed it like this. And they have removed this rib cage. So as we're first opening up the heart, and you're opening up the chest, we have the lungs on the centermost portion here, and this one they took out the right lung on this side. So we'll go ahead and talk about the structures one at a time. So with this side is that you're going to have the left lung on this side, and we're going to look at the lungs side by side in a little bit, with the heart in between. Now the heart sits hanging down just like it did with the sheep's heart, and it beats back and forth into these arteries. You can see the blood pumping through these vessels as they manually pump the heart. So the arteries feeding the system. Let's go ahead now. First off, we're going to show you the differences between the right and the left lung. We're going to do the respiratory system first, and then we'll do the cardiovascular. So this is an example of your two lungs. This one here is the right lung. This one on this side is going to be my left. So some of the features of those lungs, both on the right and the left, you have a peaked edge to it. That's the apex, both on the left and on this right. Both sides are going to have a wide braced diaphragmatic surface. It's broad, and that sits on top of the diaphragm, both on the left and on this right. But what makes them different is going to be the different lobes. So both in humans and in cats, they have different lobes. Your right lung here has 3 different lobes: superior, middle, and inferior. And you'll notice that they are completely all separated. That's different from the left lung. Now many people think of when they first dissected out that, hey, there's 3 sections, there must be 3 lobes. But this left lung only has the 2, and you see this has a section here and here. But this section, this superior lobe is connected here, so it's just one lobe, even if it is somewhat separated lower. But they are connected directly, which makes this the superior lobe. So on this side, your right lung has the 3 lobes completely separated. And then on your left side, you have the superior lobe that's connected here, and then your inferior lobe down here. The other part of the respiratory system we want to see on the cat is going to be the trachea up through here. So the trachea is here. It looks like a washboard with the cartilaginous rings all throughout here. And it goes from the mouth, curves down, and then it becomes a trachea if you get past the pharynx. And then from there it goes and feeds the lungs. Alright, so again, this is going to be our cardio system. We're going to talk about the cardiovascular system. So the heart sits in between the lungs. This was my left lung, and they took out the right lobe. In preserved tissue, especially cats and other preserved tissue, they squeeze the blood from the tissue, from the arteries, and into the veins. So in preserved tissue, your veins look darker here. For example, this is a vein, because the blood has been forced into it. It's also thinner. That's going to be comparative to your arteries here that look paler and more muscular because the blood got forced from these arteries and were pushed into this vein during the preservation process. So arteries look pale and the veins look dark. So on this side, So the veins on the body look dark because they force the blood into it, and then your arteries look pale because they force the blood away from it. So on your heart, you have the blood going from the lower part of the body through the vena cava, and this right here is my inferior, or rather in cats, it's the posterior vena cava, and it passes through this, which is my diaphragm. So that's my posterior or inferior vena cava. Going up here, I have blood feeding from my limbs and head, and then it goes down. And this right here would be my anterior or inferior, my superior or my anterior vena cava here. And it's fed by different blood vessels. Like for example here, you're seeing it feed this vein right here. This is going to be my brachiocephalic vein feeding into the superior vena cava. And on this side, you're seeing the other side of the right brachiocephalic vein, and then they both dump into this superior or anterior vena cava. On the arterial end, your aorta is going to arch. It's going to start from the top. It's going to curve around and then hug the base of the spine, giving off several branches. Now, in the case of humans, we have 3 large branches coming off the aorta. Starts out with the brachiocephalic artery, and then the left subclavian and the left carotid on the left side. On cats, they just have the 2 main branches. So on this side, they see the brachiocephalic artery, which immediately branches into 3 individual branches here. This right here would be my right subclavian, and then my 2 carotids come here, my right common carotid and my left common carotid. On the other side, this other branch coming off the aorta, that's going to be my left subclavian. Let me switch angles. Let's see it in this direction. So my left subclavian, brachiocephalic artery, which is then going to branch into my right subclavian, right common carotid, and a left common carotid over here. This capt is similar to the other one in that they opened up the chest wall and they removed the right lung, but on this one you're able to see clearly the diaphragm, the posterior or inferior vena cava, and then my superior or anterior vena cava, and then the brachiocephalic veins feeding that. This on my left side, and this one on my right. And then again, here's my diaphragm.